Last week, actress Evan Rachel Wood publicly identified musician Marilyn Manson as her abuser. Wood had testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security in 2018 in support of the Sexual Survivors Rights Act, which was signed into law by President Obama in 2016. Wood described horrific physical violence and verbal abuse at the hands of Manson. Since naming Manson as her abuser, 9 other women have come forward with similar allegations against Marilyn Manson. To discuss this is friend to the show and one of my favorite guests, William Ramsey, author, lawyer, and host of the podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. Welcome, William Ramsey.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you again, Roberta.
Yeah, I'm so happy we can talk about this. I mean, were you ready for how dark this story is?
No, I'm actually very surprised how bad it is and how it never really came out until, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. And I was just saying, we were just saying before we started recording, it really makes Johnny Depp, who's friends with Marilyn Manson, look good.
Yeah, and we did that. That was our last show, right? Was the defamation case in the UK between Depp and whatever his ex-wife's name was. Yeah, so pretty surprising. And like we were talking in the pre-show, these two know each other pretty well. So definitely birds of a feather.
And when Evan Rachel Wood testified, she didn't name Marilyn Manson, but she talked about him tying her up by her hands and feet until he felt I had proved my love to him. Is there some kind of, I know Marilyn Manson is very public. Is that some kind of satanic thing? Or is that just sort of some kind of just abusive thing?
It seems like abusive. I've never come across anything in the satanic corpus or anything, but yeah, she wasn't the only one though. And I think that when she testified, that was a big question, is who she was talking about, right? People intuited that it might have been Manson, but I think it really just kind of came out more recently. But I mean, the other four of the 9 women, Ashley Walters, Sarah McNeely, Ashley Morgan, and Gabriella with no surname, kind of made similar statements, right?
Right. And one said that he wanted to cut her and make a blood pact. What is a blood pact?
I don't know, but I think that Manson and Depp have some kind of weird blood pact too. I think that something was going on with those two, if I remember correctly. But that might have been Manson's kind of sensibility or style.
Right. And this also reminded me a little bit of the Bill Cosby story, in that people were talking about this. There's one YouTuber who's done excellent work, Ellie Jaden, Irish YouTuber, has done 3 videos, the oldest being 10 months ago. So this story has been kind of out there, and it's just being picked up now with Evan Rachel Wood confirming that she was talking about Marilyn Manson. And as soon as she named him, at first it was 4 women, now it's 9 women. So with Bill Cosby, we saw people defending him until it began to be about went up to 50 women. Now there's 9 women, and there's still people defending Marilyn Manson. I mean, are 9 women plus, 10 women altogether, is that enough to bring him down?
I mean, it seems like it's a lot. I don't know how he's going to get away with this, and it's clearly people are running for cover because he was dropped from his talent agency and his publicist dropped him. So I think it might be enough to do him in. And I heard that there was actually somebody called in. They were afraid about him, and the police were sent to his place in Hollywood for like a security check or a check-in or something like that. So, things are definitely happening, because I saw that here on LA News, is that, the police were called to his residence after Wood made her statement.
The similarity of experience of all the, I would say, alleged victims of Manson, or one of the things they talked about is that he would insist that they stay awake for days on time, plying them with drugs. And at the end of this, when they've been awake and high for days, then he would like to film them, and he'd call it art, and in these kind of, I don't know what you would call it, abuse scenarios with them, really horrific scenarios. And I guess my question is this someone well versed in mind control?
I think so. Yeah. It seems like it. It seems like he was definitely using those techniques, and I know, his association with Anton LaVey is there. Like, I think he's a member of the Church of Satan, and that was one of the things when people were in LaVey's residence. And one thing I wrote about him, I think in my book, Children of the Beast, is that they have books and books on mind control, and even Eccles, who we've talked about many times, has a book called Mind Magic. Nobody I know has read it, but it's definitely one of the things that Manson and these other guys seem to be involved with or interested in, for sure.
And this is really one of the sadder stories, just because he got away with it for so long. And the first time I saw Marilyn Manson really change directions in career or sort of get the public's respect was when he was in Bowling for Columbine.
Right.
And Michael Moore, do you remember that interview?
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed
Yes.
him, and he said, I wouldn't, I get, it's such an interesting interview to look at in retrospect. He goes, I get criticized because I sing a few songs. And that is the biggest minimization of why he was criticized.
Right. He was supposedly blamed for the massacre, right? Or having something to do that because Harris and Klebold listened to his music. Or and had a poster, I think, of him, if I remember correctly, or something like that.
And he said, I wouldn't, and they said, well, what, Marilyn Manson, what would you say to Harris and Klebold? He said, I wouldn't say anything. I would listen. And that's what nobody did. And he got, real, I remember that interview being played over and over again. And that was the really turn of him getting some kind of, I don't know, respect for its kind of mainstream culture for his quote unquote intellect. Now I look back on that interview and I think, wow, that's really, he is really smart, but he also comes off as extremely manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that in his actions with at least these women who have come forward, right? So how many have not come forward? How many do not want to come forward or whatever? Or whether there's litigation or anything at this point, I don't know.
Also, are these people coming forward because his career is on the decline?
Don't you think that they would have to feel safe or feel that, the consequences wouldn't be too severe, and that's why they're coming forward now? I think that that's what happens with a lot of the women who've been abused, is that one person steps forward, two people step forward, and then everybody else tells their story. It seems like that's a common, the way these Me Too phenomenons with these individuals plays out. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I think it takes a long time to process this kind of abuse. This is someone who's extremely manipulative. One victim showed a picture of her scars and said, I felt at the time proud of the scars that he gave me because I was so strong that I endured them. And that reminded me of the Nexium woman. So I think some of it's the time that it takes processing this. And also, I think that because he's less popular, it's a less scary thing to step forward. And also times have changed. It's a safer environment just in our society, and the understanding of this kind of abuse is getting deeper and deeper.
I totally agree. And I think people are much more receptive. Cosby was going on for years and years, or even Raniere in a lot of ways. And it's interesting you brought up Nexium, because I thought of that as well, about Manson's treatment of women. Reminded me of Keith Raniere. But I mean, it sounds like people are much more interested. They see the trauma and the damage that people like Manson seem to have, or allegedly have, wreaked havoc on all these people's lives. So I think that people recognize that these are serious incidences.
Yeah, And I just wanted to read Marilyn Manson's response. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, I can edit
Do
this out.
you want to read the original post of Evan Rachel Wood? You want me to read that?
Sure.
So and you can find whatever you look for. The name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson. He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent. So that's what she wrote on Instagram, and I think that their relation started when she was 19 and he was 37.
Okay, so
In
here is
2007. Sorry.
yeah, and I'm going to also post the link to her testimony
Okay.
in 2018. It's going to be in the description of this video, and I encourage everyone to listen to it. It's pretty powerful stuff. So this is how Marilyn Manson responded. Obviously, my life and my art have long been magnets for controversy, but these recent claims about me are horrible distortions of reality. My intimate relationships have always been consensual with like-minded partners, regardless of how and why others are now choosing to misrepresent the past. That is the truth. Quote. Is that a denial?
I think so. I think that he was just saying that all these women are consensual, but I wouldn't say if they're saying he's raping them, that's not consensual. That's one girl, Gabrielle, said rape. And I don't know specifically what the details of his full abuse of Wood was, but
Evan Rachel Wood said
yeah.
he drugged her and raped what he thought was her unconscious body. So I guess it's a denial. It's not a very strong denial because it's a horrible distortion of reality. Well, how is it distorted exactly?
Right.
Could it be worse? Could it be
Right.
worse
Well,
than what they're
yeah. What are
saying?
the other statements? I mean, have you been able to find statements of some of the other women other than the ones that have written? Like the article I see is from a couple of days ago. I don't know what these newer statements have said, but I think that he might actually be. They have a new prosecutor here in L.A. He might actually get into criminal trouble.
Well, and I hope that I hope this goes to trial because I'd really like to quiet down the people who say, well, guilty, he's being proved guilty before he can defend himself. I hope it gets aired out in court, and I
It
hope that
might.
he gets all the time and whatever to defend himself. But this does not look good. And one of the things that doesn't look good is the similarity of experience. And one of the things many of the victims talk about, is Manson locking them away in what he called the ballet room and for days on a time. And
Wow.
he admits to doing that too. So he said twice he talked about that, about locking women in the room and being annoyed. He says I don't like staying in bed too late. This is a day in the life of Marilyn Manson. So I'm usually up by 3 p.m. If I lock my girlfriend in the naughty room the night before, I have to remember to let her out or she gets mad at me. That's his
Yikes.
own words.
All right. So she has a ballet room. Didn't he say he had a rape room too?
Right.
Thought he
He
said that.
referred to the room as, I don't know if that's the same room.
I
Other
don't
people
know.
talked about a cellar. So I don't know. And the other thing is his history of violence. And he talks in his memoir about beating up his own mother.
Wow.
And and he says, well, I inherited my father's temper and he said, my mother still has the scar from where I threw a perfume bottle at her. And I watched her after I spit on her, choked her and beat her up. I watched her sob. She never retaliated. I watched her sob and I never felt sorry for her.
Hmm.
What I mean, that sounds like a sociopath.
Yeah,
And
that's not good.
he's choosing to tell this in his own memoir.
Yeah, according to Phoebe Bridgers, Marilyn Manson owned a rape room. So I went to Marilyn Manson's house when I was a teenager with some friends. I was a big fan. He referred to a room in his house as a rape room. I thought he had a horrible frat boy sense of humor. I stopped being a fan. I stand with everybody who came forward, she said.
And so Marilyn Manson was one of the, most public supporters of the West Memphis Three.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting that his defense also mirrored a little bit of the West Memphis Three defense. Like, I wore black t-shirts. I know I wear black t-shirts, but don't rush judgment. I mean, he's
Yeah.
saying his life and his
That's a good point.
music are controversial, but
Right.
he's
But they
really a
never
different
really,
kind of
yeah, but
guy.
they dodge it, right? They never address specific facts.
Right.
So very much the West Memphis Three approach. Yeah, so they were together. I think it was, for people who don't know, I think Marilyn Manson was a supporter, and then they were together in 2014 for the Golden Gods Award. I think Eccles introduced Manson while he was playing, if I remember correctly. So, and there's pictures of them together. Lots of pictures, lots of the pictures of Manson with Depp. So the circle definitely, they were in the same orbit, so to speak. Depp, Manson, and Eccles.
So when we talk about two different kinds of supporters of the West Memphis Three, I think there's some supporters who watch the documentaries and really feel that that's what happened and that they're innocent. And I think there's this other element who, what you would call as fellow travelers, who, and I would put Manson in that category. And I would think that I'm not so sure I believe he really thinks that they're innocent. I think that he really relates to Eccles as a fellow occultist and advocated for them on that reason. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do definitely agree that you can put the supporters into those two groups. A core group of fellow travelers, and then other people who have bought the propaganda, but or the PR. But yeah, I think that yeah, I mean, Marilyn Manson definitely knows a lot about Crowley, just like Eccles. He referenced Crowley, Abbey of Thelema, in one of his songs. He talks about the Age of Horus like Crowley, New Age, and has kind of the same outlook, it seems, and ideology as a lot of these occultists do. So it's not surprising that he was a West Memphis Three supporter.
And and also there's also the element of pedophilia that comes up in this. So Evan Rachel Wood says that she met and started having a relationship with Marilyn Manson when she was underage, but how how underage we don't really know. He put her in Lolita glasses and really played up that element of, you know, the Nabokov book and
Right, but
that sort of celebration of pedophilia.
she specifically used that term groomed, right? So
Hmm.
that's like the term that's used when pedophiles are, you know, guiding people towards whatever. But yeah, so she said she was groomed. I don't know. I'd like to know the exact date when they started communicating.
And there was another, I mean, there's been also other people who've come forward on Instagram. It's a little odd kind of platform. It's an odd platform to really check things out, but saying that he used one woman came forward and said, I met him on the platform Kik, Kik. I don't
All
know.
right, kick.
He's
Yeah,
a
kick. Yeah,
Kick.
kick. Yeah,
Okay, a lot of
that's it.
a lot of teenagers are using it, and that he really pursued her and was sending her pornography and pretended that he didn't mean to send it to her. So there's also another fan who said, oh, I met him when I was underage, and he said, come back when you're 18 and you're really cute, and was very, overtly sexual with her and inappropriate with her. So there's also this interview in Rolling Stone where he talks about his friendship with Johnny Depp. And I just like to quote it. He says, we like to consider ourselves 12th graders, the guys with more experience than ninth graders, the ones that girls want to F. I mean, time and age are really irrelevant to me. Johnny is the same way. Sometimes I think I'm trapped in that age that I started this. I'm trapped at 23 or 14, of course, depending on the company.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, have you heard that it's the story's kind of developed because she is now claiming that Manson's going to leak pictures of her? Have you heard that?
I heard his wife, with the help of his wife now.
Right. So there's like a conspiracy. So she put out one of these pictures, I think, that he had, it seems like from what I looked that drew some kind of Hitler mustache on her. And so this is still unraveling, but I think that she wrote, this is from her Instagram. On December 19th, I had to file a police report after I was alerted to threats made by Leslie Lane and Lindsay Usich, official, Brian's wife, for conspiring to release photos of me when I was underage after being given large amounts of drugs and alcohol after Brian performed on Halloween in Las Vegas to, quote, ruin my career, unquote, and shut me up. The conversation, which took place on the Discord channel, read as such. So,
Wow.
so I mean, so what I'm reading is that they met at 19, but what she's saying is there's a lot more to that story, that they did not just meet or start dating when she was 19, which might be the case, but it seems like their relationship started when she was younger. Do you get that sense?
I get that sense too, and that's been hinted at. And I know that she went on his tour bus and told her mother that I'm going to see the world, and sort of I'm going on a big adventure. So when did that happen? I don't know. Hard to know. And does this remind you a little bit of some of the stuff he also admits to calling her 158 times after they broke up and threatening to kill himself. Does that remind you of the Johnny Depp stuff? I mean, it certainly does me.
Kind of, yeah. But also the threats. I think he said something like, what did he say? I have fantasies every day about smashing her skull in with a sledgehammer after they broke
Yeah.
up or something. He told an interview in 2009. So very much similar to what was in the Depp lawsuit. Yeah.
Well, she was inspiration for the song "I Want to Kill You" like they do in the movies. I mean, it wouldn't wanted to be the inspiration for that song. And when he was being interviewed about it, he says, "Yes, I just have fantasies of, smashing her head in with a sledgehammer." That's a paraphrase, but pretty close to the original quote. It's just, I mean, he was not shy about any of this. Stuff has been around for years, and I guess it was his cover, his sort of dark image. Do you
Was
think
his
people
cover
just
that? Oh, I think
yeah,
so.
blew it off and was like, oh, that's just part of his image. He can't really be doing any of this.
Well, that might be the case, but it sure seems like that there's a pattern there. And I mean, I think he has lawsuits with like most of his band members, like former band members that were in Marilyn Manson. Have you heard of like his lawsuits and his squabbling with them? And there's a video of Marilyn Manson throwing a mic stand and knocking out his drummer. You ever seen those statements or things like that? Like, I gotta find those lawsuits. Like, it seems like he was in litigation with a lot of people.
I bet. And, there's been two. I know the editor at Spin in 1998 sued him. And I know Manson countersued. I couldn't figure out, I couldn't follow where that ended, for having his bodyguards. Manson apparently told this Spin editor, I can have you and your whole family killed. He also pled no contest to a misdemeanor and paid $4,000 for assaulting and putting his genitals on a bouncer or a security guard. So, he's crossed the line into this kind of behavior before. But I think there's something to having this kind of image that kind of protects you. So if you're not expected to act correctly, it seems like you can get away with a lot.
No, I think you're right. I think that's a good point. But I mean, what kind of, it's just like Cosby. How many other people are coming forward? Now it's at 10. I read a new article that said there's 10 accusations. And have you heard of Amber Heard's weighing in on this whole situation?
No,
Yeah, so
please
she
enlighten
she had
me.
a tweet. So this is hers. She says, And yet, no, this is from February 4th, real Amber Heard. Yeah, and yet no one sees the trend here. Everyone wants to tag a bathroom wall. No one wants to understand the writing. Evan and I are the first to raise our hands. Are you done ignoring it? The Marilyn Manson reckoning. Sorry. But yeah, so she's definitely watching this as well. I mean, she has to
That's
know that Depp is friends with Manson too. So
that's really interesting. And um Dita Von Teese, who was married to Marilyn Manson, has come forward and said, well, this wasn't my experience being married to him, but um, she wishes well and healing to all the survivors of him. Do you believe that? That she didn't experience any of this?
well, I mean, that's what she said, but I mean, if his pattern of with women is what all these women say, there might be another story to that. So I wouldn't know. I don't have any evidence to that. But do you believe her?
I don't.
I
I
don't.
don't believe her. I mean, she may have left before their marriage was very short, before she saw some of the extremes of this behavior. But there was just one little clue at the end of her statement where she said, I hope that the survivors become self-realized or something like that, meaning that I didn't get abused because I'm fully self-realized. There's some
Hmm.
kind of ego where I'm not going to be a victim. I won't claim victimhood, even if I really was victimized, because I can't. That's not part of my makeup. I'm self-realized. I'm strong and self-realized. I think was at the end of that statement. And that's what clued me into it. She also left and she pulled her pets from the house and she left in a day. That doesn't mean that's not everything to it. But I think that if you have a pattern of doing this, yes, they don't do it. I don't think they do the exact same things to everybody doesn't get all of the things on the menu with these abusers. I don't mean to minimize it, putting it that way, but I'm sure she was subjected to some really awful behavior. I don't see how he couldn't.
Well,
I mean,
she
if he's
only,
beating up his own mother, I mean,
yeah, they were only married for a year, right? So it's
right.
almost like the Amber Heard pattern. Like they were together, got married, lasted a year. That was it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
she's
just to confirm, Manson is the godfather of Depp's daughter.
okay.
I don't.
So
I thought.
they're really tight, and they're both West Memphis 3 supporters. And I bring that up just to say they had a lot of power as sort of at the time they were really at the height of their career or close to it when they
I would
were
say
supporting
so.
the West Memphis Three.
Absolutely, yes. I think
Maybe
Depp was
not so
still on doing the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? I think he made tons of money off of that.
right. And you have to consider if you're going to come out and publicly support the innocence of 3 people who 2 juries convicted, you have somewhere in the back of your mind, I don't care how uh, shallow your knowledge of the case is, you have to consider that you might be wrong and they might be guilty and you might be supporting child killers, 3 child killers, right?
I would think so,
Triple child killers.
especially if you're paying his legal fees, because those documents, I've seen some of those documents where the lawyers for Eccles, the I can't remember Reardon, is saying, "Oh, I'll talk to Johnny and have him send." And look at some of those bills, $25,000 a month. They were not paid by Eccles, so they weren't just supporters; they were financial backers, or at
Mm-hmm.
least Depp was. That's on the record.
And another thing that hasn't been brought up is the kind of culture of yes men around these both Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson.
Right. Like I think that our last interview when we talked about Depp and all that stuff and his penthouses, but so many hangers on. So many of these people were staying in other apartments. Heard sister, right? Wasn't she there? So they definitely had retinue of hangers on. I heard Depp's payouts per month. They had to cut those back, but he was paying tons of people money.
Yeah, and then also right after we finished that episode, excuse me, the Hollywood Reporter came out with a cover story on Depp. Wasn't that afterwards, or was that
I don't remember. It
before?
must have been after because
I
I don't
thought
remember
I
talking
thought it
about
was afterwards, and it said it's the quote is he's radioactive, how Johnny Depp's self-made implosion, the history of Johnny Depp's self-made implosion. And he talks about him not learning his lines anymore, using an earpiece, making the
Right.
guy who handled his earpieces head of his production company. I mean,
So bizarre.
it's so bizarre and wild. And if anything, that just, I think, solidified everything that's in that judge's decision about the chaotic nature of his life, and everybody's just saying yes, and there's endless money, and it's wild.
Drugs. Yeah,
And
craziness.
drugs, yes, and that's a element here too. So you hear abstinence. Another victim talked about Marilyn Manson talking about a drug that he has to drug women so they can't complain during sex, and that he leaves no trace of himself. So he
Oh,
seems very conscious of the law. Um, and he said in interviews, depending on the statute of limitations, whether I'll tell that story or not. So he is conscious of not wanting to get in trouble, and then conscious of what he's doing is wrong too.
yeah. Fast. I mean, yeah, he's 52. And how long, when did he get started? When he was in his teens. So he's been operating for decades.
Right. And some of the detractors have said that these women should have known, just looking at Marilyn Manson, that he was this abusive just by his public image.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, that's the whole thing, is how real is the image, right? I think it's kind of going back to your earlier questions, is how much of that is he in real life? And it sure seems like he knows a lot about the occult, that's for sure. So I would think that maybe some of these women didn't, I mean, in a lot of relationships, they don't know what they're getting into, the totality of what they're getting involved in. So,
I
um,
mean, as dark as his public image goes, I don't think he's, uh, I don't think that's for consent, being locked in a room for 3 days or being hung up by your feet,
right,
bound by your feet and hands. And the other thing that Marilyn Manson supporters have said is this is just BDSM. This is the same Nexium defense
right.
that was given to Keith Raniere when the branding story first came out, that this is just consensual BDSM relationship.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like consensual at all. Some of the things these women endured. So, uh, that's not really that great of a public excuse.
Not at all. And I have major problems with BDSM, and as far as a practice. So, I'm the last person to say that this is BDSM. And the fact that it can be used both in the Nexium and this story as a defense should give everybody the first clue that there's something really,
Yes, no, that's a great
really
point.
wrong with it.
Yes, that's a great point.
So he also just gave an interview to a metal magazine, and he won't answer any questions. He calls these allegations rumors. They're just rumors. I just want to talk about my music. I mean, and he ends up hanging up on this journalist. And then his publicist calls back and says, well, if you want any relationship with Marilyn Manson, then you have to X this interview, never publish it, forget
Wow.
about it. And the instead, this metal magazine went on to print everything that the publicist said. So is this a clue as to how he got away with it for so long?
Yeah, intimidation, trying to play games. I think they're experienced PR people surrounding these guys, not just Manson. So that might be one of it, one element. Was it the interview with Metal Hammer? Is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
That's it. I
So,
don't know. I mean, what is to be said about this? How many okay, so we've had Johnny Depp, we've had Marilyn Manson. Um how many other West Memphis 3 supporters have taken this kind of dive or been canceled?
Oh, that's a good
If you want to
question.
put it, if you want to call this being canceled, I think that's kind of an understatement of what this is.
Yeah, I don't know who's next on who's next on the list. I mean, I
You
maybe
got Natalie Maines,
yeah, Natalie
uh,
Maines, Margaret Cho, uh, who else? Henry Rollins, right?
Henry Rollins.
Who's the what's the director who supported him? It's what's the guy who did the Lord of the Rings? Peter
I,
Jackson.
Peter Jackson still seems to have somewhat of a career.
Yeah, still
Um,
functioning. I
so there's
mean,
still some West Memphis 3 support.
Genesis
I
P.
mean,
Orridge, right?
just died,
Just
so
passed
he
away.
he went
He
he
got the
he
ultimate cancellation.
he did, and but it's just interesting to watch because at the time they really had weight and power. Like, oh well, Johnny Depp is getting behind them. He wouldn't ruin his good name by supporting 3 child killers, right? I mean that was the implication. I mean, he went on 2020 and gave a full interview to Aaron Moriarty. I always pronounce her
Right.
name wrong, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Her
I know. I know who, and she didn't ask any good questions, right?
No, she is basically
Yeah.
just the go-to journalist if you want an innocence piece. And
Gotcha.
she's been shouted out by Lonnie Surrey on Twitter as great
Oh,
work once again. So I think
oh,
there's really um, a, a very tight-knit relationship between her and the wrongful conviction movement.
interesting. I think you mentioned that before in a former interview too, that she's really just a doormat, for these people.
Yeah.
I mean, any relationship with Lonnie Sori should tell you a little bit about everything. I mean, who knows what other do you know offhand who else she's kind of log world for other than her?
Ryan Ferguson. I think she
Oh
did the
wow,
Ryan Ferguson piece. And that's Kathleen Zellner's client who got out on a technicality. His co-murderer is still in prison, and then she went to every court, and until she got one judge to accept her argument about this technicality and got him out, and then paraded Ryan Ferguson around like he was innocent. That was one of the more shocking pieces of reading I did because I really hoped, I really hope every time I look into any of these cases that this is I don't want them to be a case of innocence fraud. I
right,
really do hope
right,
I'll find a miscarriage of justice, but his co-murderer is still in prison and they can't get him out. So what does that tell you? And they did the
keep the
crime
odds up,
together.
right?
And he got out on a technicality. The police department had to make, this is going to get, I took a little break, William Ramsey, but this is going to get way worse this year and beyond with innocence
Probably,
fraud
yeah,
and the business of suing people, suing the state for these wrongful convictions, and the amount of money that it's
right.
going to generate is going to just get it. I don't know if there's ever going to be an end to it, but I think I thought we were slowing down a bit, but it looks like we're just amping up.
Just ramping it up. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably right. I bet there are just going to be more cases and more fighting against the legal system and its conclusions and its guilty verdicts. I'm watching this whole thing with Depp and Manson in this video called Satan, Sayt or 10, pronounce Satan there. All it's gross. It looks like it's actually kind of abusive towards females. Knife chasing a woman in underwear. It's bad.
So what's the connection between this kind of abuse and Satanism? Is a do what thou will and that whole philosophy?
I think so, but if you look at like Crowley, you can't tell how deep these guys have absorbed the kind of views of Crowley. But his view of women were like they were energy stores to be used and drained and left, and then move on. So it's almost like these females were he called them scarlet women, but like if you literally brand them with what he called the mark of the beast, which was kind of this conjunction of different lunar or planetary signs. But if you look at Crowley's behavior towards women, um, you can just see his operating was just to like try to suck the knowledge out when that current or that energy or magical energy is done, on to the next one. So you just see him bouncing. What did he have? I mean, I think at the Office of Scarlet Women, what he had like 12 at least, and then tons of other women, just prostitutes and stuff like that. And that's not even including the men. But I think that attitude, it almost seems like that Crowley's attitude seems very similar to Manson's attitude. You just try to work them up, get some kind of
Suck
force
all
out
their
of them,
and
creative force.
magical,
Yeah,
like there
magical.
is such a thing as a magical life force out of them. And Keith Raniere read Crowley, very interested in Crowley, and he did exactly that with women. He sucked all their creative energies out, used them, um, and starved them, branded them. Same thing. So, I guess my question is it like chicken or the egg kind of question? Do abusive people come to Crowley and get permission to be abusive,
I think
or
so. Yeah.
is it okay?
I think that's it. I think that's like, if you're really a do what thou wilt, you're a god and you can act like one. There's no God but man. I think then it's like, where am I getting my creative energy from? That's what Crowley's promising. And then he gives you these techniques and religious things using Scarlet Women or whatever. And that's how you get this energy. Like Crowley himself, his output, it's pretty remarkable that he could put out that much writing without ever, really checking his stuff. So there might be some validity. And if somebody's interested in the occult, maybe they want to find out if that's valid, if what Crowley's doing is valid. So
What do you mean that someone else wrote his work? Is that what you mean?
well, I mean, if somebody reads Crowley and says like, okay, this guy's showing me this process where I can obtain energy and creative energy using Scarlet Women, then they're doing it as well, right? Raniere's doing it, or Manson. I don't have any proof of that. That's pure speculation, but I'm just saying that using Crowley as like an example, then you can see kind of how some of these other people treat groupies and treat women. I mean, the abuse of groupies in hard rock is always, I mean, it's legendary, right? It's always there. So there might be tons of other stories that don't really involve like a interpersonal relationship or something like that, just people they've met in some strange environment, San Antonio, New York, just on the way through. So I don't know, but I think that Crowley definitely, his attitude, you can kind of see that similarity between Manson and Crowley and their attitude towards women.
Do you believe that Crowley's technique works?
Well, that's a good question. Some people who've used that technique says it works. Like there's people who've done his rituals and stuff and say, hey, I got results. Jimmy Page is one, for example, who, probably one of the most popular rock bands ever, said, yeah, I tried it and it worked. So wow. I think other people are, if they're curious, if they're adventurers or like that, or occultists. And a lot of his, I never really focused on his magical rituals or get into magic and theory practice, or I really didn't focus on that aspect of his life, but that's what other people are looking at. They don't care about his history or things that have been expurgated from his biography. They really just want what he was promising through his magic, right? Through practices of different types of rituals and think Gnostic mass and all those things to get what they want, get worldly power, money.
I mean, I know Hubbard was very interested in Crowley. So is it like being a god, having what Scientology promises, mastery over energy, time, matter, and space?
Yeah, matter, energy, space, time. That's what they
thank
call
you.
it. Yes,
right. So is that to be a god?
Yeah.
Essentially, right?
Yes, I think so. I think that may be the original promise of like what happened in the Garden of Eden, is you shall be as gods. So it's that same temptation. Crowley reflected that in his corpus, and you can see all these other people who manifest that in their lives. They think of themselves as their own independent energy, independent person beyond good and evil, so to speak. They can do what they want, and it's a very dangerous ideology. It's like the opposite of, caring about your neighbor or something like that. It's just like you're just looking, their relationships are totally skewed. Like really, he had like these girlfriends, he was done with her, punched her. Another one he left for prostitution in France. Another one he put in a mental institution. So once he was done with them, he was done.
And as someone who's skeptical of, pretty much everything, a little bit, I'm really been meditating on how how evil people always have a bunch of minions. They do
Yeah.
very little. Like if you look at Damien Eccles, like he does very little arguing about his case and his innocence. He has a million people to do it for him, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And ditto, any of these other murderers with an innocence campaign. They'll always find it just seems like it has an energy of its own.
It really does. I mean, it almost is kind of like their the slave shall serve mentality. So you're at the center, you've got your minions, you have them doing things, and that's the way that you like it. It's kind of like a feudalistic social organization to a certain extent. And yeah, I think Depp had that. Eccles definitely, Crowley definitely. So you can look at some of the more evil people in history too. They always have these like willing minions who do their bidding for them.
What's the message of the Marilyn Manson, Evan Rachel Wood, and all the other victim survivors? What is the message? What is the through line in this story?
Be careful. Be careful who you are associated with. And I mean, I think that telling these stories is very helpful for women and authority so that they know that this is happening. But I think a lot of this stuff was not published before. So, to her benefit for Wood coming forward and telling these stories gives other women the opportunity to come forward, and then also warns other people. Like, you got to really be careful, especially some of these guys who are into occultism. There's a lot of toxic interpersonal relationships are kind of like the standard for occultists. So you got to really be careful.
Yeah, I think that another through line through this is just, I think one of the hashtags some of the survivors are using is "I'm not okay," and I'm really struck by sitting through. It just reminded me of sitting through Keith Raniere's sentencing and listening to all. I mean, the damage done does not get healed easily. I'm not saying ever. I'm just saying easily. And we just tend to forget the victims in our society. And like it was, especially in something like the West Memphis 3 case, like it's nothing, like okay, 3 little 8-year-old boys are dead, and their families will just get over it. It's done. The real injustice is the 3, even say it was that they were falsely convicted, say, just for argument's sake, which they weren't, but
right.
There's still 3 dead 8-year-old children in this. That's the tragedy, and you can't undo these things. They can't
Look
be
at
undone.
Epstein. Look at Epstein and all the women that he abused and his whole crew abused, and was it Crime Victim Rights Act, right? That was one of the big issues, is that these women never really got to come forward and tell their stories until the whole story broke, in 2018.
Until after he was dead. They
came even more.
They could tell their story. That's quite different than going into a courtroom and looking into the eyes of your abuser.
They were denied that, right, by him dying or whatever happened to him. But no, but I think it's a consistent theme, is like this abuse and the cover up. So I would assume these abusers always wanted to cover up, and even Scientology, you can look at the cycle of abuse there. The people who are ex-Scientologists, they never get over it. It almost is like a dominant aspect of their whole life was their time in that group. And so I think it's really about the victims and about their stories and listening to those stories, and hopefully the malefactors get some form of some type of punishment, some type of recompense.
So I heard that you are just like tearing it up on your podcast, producing an amazing amount of episodes. So what's coming up? What's coming up on your podcast?
Well, that's a good question. I will be talking to Peter Vronsky, who was on. He's coming out with a new book American Serial Killers, The Epidemic Years. But he was just on the Netflix 4-part documentary about Richard Rodriguez. So it'll be interesting to talk to him. And I've got a couple of good shows coming up.
Oh, that's a good
including
guest.
this one and this one. Yeah, so Vronsky will be really interesting. And I got deplatformed from YouTube, so I
that was my next
was
question
coming.
to ask you about. So this is a question where people are saying that Marilyn Manson got canceled. He got canceled unfairly, and he lost his record company, his agent, blah blah blah. You have been removed for YouTube. What was your crime?
I had videos from 4 years ago that were pertaining to things around kind of Pizzagate-ish, but somebody went through and found all those. And yeah, let me see if I can find my strikes. I'm trying to see if this was, yeah, let's see. Presidential integrity was, I think, one of the things where I kept saying I think that really what got me in trouble is really I was saying that the election was rigged, but I'm trying to find where. I think I had one about James Alefantis and the statue of Antinous, which was his symbol. That was considered bullying or harassment from 4 years ago. So that was one. And then I also had Katy Perry and like pedophile symbols in one of her videos, and then also got me a strike. I can't remember what my first strike was, but
this is interesting, and just
those are from 4 years ago, Roberta. Those are like pre-2016 election.
But also, there's also this new thing where people can't say sexual abuse out loud, child abuse out loud. They're putting sort of like a little silence so they don't get demonetized in their videos about subject matters like this. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like we're going two ways at the same time,
Yeah. Well, I think the most
victims are sort of being pushed forward, but you can't say sexual abuse, you can't say child abuse, you can't say those things if you want to make money on your video. You can't have a different opinion on Twitter. You can't have a different opinion than the norm on YouTube. This whole idea of hate speech,
it's very subjective,
dangerous.
It's very subjective. And it's very, like, for me, I was just looking at things objectively. I was not trying to bully anybody. So it's really somebody's saying subjective. And also, it's the fact that if they don't like on some other issue, they can just make something up extemporaneously and claim that you're bullying somebody and then get rid of you. So that's why I deleted my Facebook and Twitter accounts. So I'm done with that. I will never be back on those websites because I don't want to be acclimatized. I don't want to be trained to just take it, because freedom of speech is so important. Even bad speech, even Nazi speech, even awful stuff, you want people to talk, for even Absolutely. If it hurts your feelings. I love when people tell me their ugly viewpoints. I'm like, great, keep talking. So the whole idea against free speech, somebody's hiding something. It's not even, it's because they don't want certain speech about them, is my opinion about why they want to end free speech. Is a lot of these people, I mean, even Zuckerberg exposed himself. I think he put $400 million into the campaign against to have all kinds of polling booths and stuff like that, or places where you could send your ballot. He financed a lot of that against the vote. I mean, so I think that there's an issue for him too. But yeah, so I think that the censorship is really pernicious, and it's surprising that so many people in our society are willing to have it. You should love free speech. It's one thing that sets the country apart, is allowed to speak truth to power, speak truth to people with money. And if that goes away, it's a terrible. It's already going away, but be terrible for the whole country and for society in general. Just awful. Imagine if you couldn't tell this story about Marilyn Manson. Right.
The debate also, which makes you smarter.
Absolutely. I have people on my podcast. I don't fully agree with them, all their stuff, but at least their perspective. I value them teaching me why they think if they're honest about it. So I think that's like the necessity, is to have the open marketplace of ideas and talk about things and expose things and learn. And so, yeah, this whole chilling of free speech is a terrible turn for the country. And people
It's
who want to curtail free speech should be embarrassed.
it's a really scary time, and this is a very slippery slope. You may agree with someone being, whatever, deplatformed or censored or whatever. I'm not talking about Marilyn Manson,
Right.
but for their opinions, because they offend you. But boy, is that a slippery slope.
Oh, it
So,
is. Yeah, no, it's like those people, they're already starting to end up inside the mouth of the tiger that they let loose. So some of these people, if they don't have the necessary politically correct position, are also on the left getting chewed up and spit out. So people
oh
are getting
yeah,
fired. So that's the problem. It's like, oh, it's not going to be me. Well, eventually they'll come for you.
exactly,
So,
exactly. And this, yep,
and you
it's
just
very
need people
scary.
need to grow up. I think it's part of the kind of thin-skinned culture of easily offended people, and it's just a mistake. Like if you don't agree with that, you don't have to listen to it, but you should protect their right to speak.
Well,
And I mean,
don't
even
you?
back in the day, the ACLU was very courageous. They actually supported like Nazi marches,
I
which is
remember that.
which is not the case
Yep.
anymore. So that's gone. But I mean, they literally supported horrible, awful people to express their opinions. And in a lot of ways, it brings how awful they are to light. Like a lot of these Nazis, like back in Rockwell or whatever, um, awful, atrocious people. But you should be looking at that. You can't get away from the pains of history and things that happened in the past. You have to look at it and let people talk about it. Actually, I lived for a minute. I lived on the same block where Rockwell got shot in Arlington, Virginia. So it was kind of like a funny thing to walk, well, darkly amusing thing to walk by where one of his own like Nazi cronies shot him.
Well,
So
I remember because the Pennsylvania where I grew up, we have a big um, there was a big,
Nazi
KKK.
thing, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so ACU would come around so they could do their little marches and stuff.
So anyway,
Yeah, it's a very important, and it's a scary time. I wonder if we're even know if the younger generation is even going to know how to critically think, and if we're going to move also towards a legal uh our law being written so that hurt feelings are it's going to be kind of like the same thing as physical.
right, good
You
point.
know what I
No,
mean? Like
we're almost
hurt
there.
feelings, right?
Yeah, we're almost there. You hurt my feelings. You caused intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're almost there.
Yeah,
I mean, some of
definitely.
these, like the intolerance too about mistakes and stupid things people say, it's like the consequences are very serious. And I always think of Roseanne doing some stupid tweet, but the consequences of her getting nixed was like 150 other people who relied upon her for jobs too, and nobody really considered the consequences of that as well. So, yeah, I just it's a very strange time in our culture. I don't remember it ever being like this.
Oh, it's frightening. Do you think it's going to get worse?
Worse,
Like
yeah, yeah,
worse?
yeah.
Is it going to get so terrible that nobody can stand it and then normalize, or is it just going to be a one-way direction to
Civil
Orwellian
War, yeah,
Nightmareville?
yeah, yeah. Well, I hope not. But the way things are going, it seems like it's still going. And people, the rhetoric is very irresponsible. Like, I mean, you can see AOC just sociopathically lying about her being assaulted by these people, which is it's total. And she cried on cue, man. Like the fake cry too of AOC was incredible. Like, and it was just complete fabrication. It was total like the whole thing that she was being injured or unsafe was just nonsense. And so
Yeah.
people are still doing that. Like there's no because she knows there's no real consequence for her. So as long as she's allowed to get away with stuff like that, and other people are making up stories or calling people domestic terrorists and things like that just for voicing opinions, it's not a good place to be.
Not at all. This is a good place to leave it. William
Okay.
Ramsey, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
You still there?
Yeah.
Oh, I could talk about AOC all day. Oh my God.
Yeah.
How is that?